Father Seraphim Howland was asked about this conversation during Rainbow Flag Month regarding love versus acceptance, and he answered brilliantly.
Truly a loving Christian, then you're going to accept a homosexual lifestyle from somebody else. You know, Jesus would have loved that person, is what they would say.
Well, sure, Jesus absolutely would love that person, and we love that person too. I like to give this example. You have an uncle. You love your uncle. He helped raise you. You love him like the day is long. But your uncle develops a drinking problem, and he's drinking way too much. You go to your uncle saying, "Uncle, please stop drinking. You're killing yourself." You love your uncle, but you beg him to stop drinking because it's killing him. You're not accepting the drinking, but you love your uncle. Well, sexual perversity and sexual hedonism of all kinds, whether it's perverse, whether it's normal, I always say sex, or abnormal sex, if it's outside of marriage, it is toxic, always.
If
it is outside of marriage, it is toxic always.
It's not nothing.
The idea of a alcoholic uncle always gets people really triggered with regards to this, because they're like, you're paralleling my
desire, my love, my relationship to a heroin addict
or alcoholism addict, or alcoholism and alcoholic. I think it's not always a one-to-one comparison in that regard, right? Like, we can look at the CDC articulating the numbers around HIV rates amongst LGBT community men. 40 times more likely. 40x.
Wow.
Right? The number of domestic violence rates amongst lesbian women, I think 2.5 times more likely than heterosexual. Right? So these rates, bisexual people more likely to be victims of domestic violence.
Wow.
So I could make a very pragmatic argument just on the numbers of the fruit of said lifestyle and practice are not helpful, healthy, conducive to human flourishing. The hilarious part is when you get into these numbers, which most people don't know, because these are numbers that no one wants to talk about.
Yep.
When you get to these numbers, what happens is people go, well, the reason why that is because we live in a homophobic society. And it's like, well, no. You can't say that the numbers are because, then it goes into the Marxist argument that everything is the system's fault. The system is what creates LGBT men to be 40 times more likely to contract HIV.
Yeah.
It's what? Or
or
the actual lifestyle perpetuates high risk sexual activity. Like, it's embedded in the paradigm and the hedonism aspect of it. I'm not saying all people who deal with same-sex attraction or all people who are LGBT are that. I'm saying that there's enough data there that you can just, from a very pragmatic, ethical standpoint, make that argument, right? And people will say, well, we don't like that because you're not making room for the the LGBT person who's monogamous, who saves themselves for marriage, yada, 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 right? They will not make room for that in the conversations about the fruit of it, the statistical anomalies. Because there are those folks that are celibate until marriage, and then they get married, and they're trying to walk and be Christian, but they marry someone of the same sex. I think the aspects of those, that's the exception to the rule in terms of the data. And just because someone can functionally operate as an alcoholic, that does not necessarily mean that the alcoholism is good on them long-term or short-term.
Yeah.
Right? My mother was a functioning alcoholic that wasn't good for her. Like, that came with consequences. She caught DUIs, it's other things. She functioned, she made money, she went to work every day for decades. And so I think the entire notion that in order for you to accept me, you have to affirm me. In order for you to love me, you have to co-sign and vouch for every aspect of my life. This is where people are now confused regarding what love is. And this is where it shifts, especially this month, into you have to believe what I believe. Like, this is where it starts getting pushy. And Zuby made an interesting point. He posted it and I surveyed people. He posted and basically said, I think the idea that Pride Month and the flag is actually causing more homophobia because it's so in your face that it's repulsing people to the point where they're becoming more hostile. And so here's the tweet. I have no hard data, but I'd wager that the massive and aggressive push of Pride Month and other LGBTQXYZ shenanigans over the last few years is creating more homophobia at this point, not less. I consider myself pretty tolerant and have grown to despise seeing that flag everywhere. Put this up on my Instagram. 95% of people on my Instagram agreed with this assessment.
Wow.
And my Instagram is not like it's not just all conservatives, like, because when I used to do music, like there's still a huge music audience there, right? And so I think that community is doing themselves a disservice every June and just completely missing how backwards it is and how unhelpful this entire movement has become to them in their own agenda. By saying you have to accept everything about me, you're now creating an unnecessary divide with people that could just be like, look, man, I think you should be left alone.
Yeah.
I think you should not have your livelihood threatened. I think you should not be physically attacked. I think you should be free to do with your body what you want.
But don't come for my cake business.
But don't come for my cake business. Don't come for my kids. Don't come for my church. And don't say I have to affirm you or I'm a bigot, right? Now, if you want to get into this Jesus talk, I'm going to have to tell you the truth. Any relationships of any kind in sexual nature are absolutely, outside of a marriage, are absolutely inappropriate and outside of God's design for you, including the LGBT practice. That is not, that should not be considered as something polarizing or dangerous to say. I think in the past, maybe some Christians, because I'm not going to hyper generalize, but maybe some Christians have done a bad job of not saying the first. I don't think you should be bullied. I don't think you should be hurt. I don't think you should be attacked. I don't think you should be mistreated. I don't think you should be taken out of, discriminated against in economic job opportunities. Perhaps we haven't been as clear as that, which maybe silence on that has sent the wrong signal that we're okay with those people being mistreated, and we're not. No one should be mistreated, regardless of how they sin. Right. And now we're at this really interesting cultural crossroads that I'm not really sure how these things are going to go. But what I do know is that the data is showing there's a shift in terms of how many people find those relationships sinful, according to the research of Pew data, that it's shifted like 4 or 5 points over. And that's crazy to think about, right? That it seems like the conversation of should they be allowed to get married was settled in 2008, 2010, and now the entire thing is at jeopardy for that community, or so they would have you believe. All right, let me know what you think about that in the comments section, and it would be remiss of me to not tell you about our biggest sale of the year, our Father's Day sale happening right now. You can get our brand new Bless God Prayer Journal at the cheapest price it's ever been, as well as some pretty fire priest, provider, protector launch that's perfect for the husband, the father, or the mentor in your life. So go to blessgod.shop and pick up something right now. All right, I'll see you over there. Peace.